Hey everyone, welcome to another issue of Marvel Time. As I hang on one second, wait, there it is. Now it's official. Now it's officially Marvel Time. Things are a little bit different today, as you can see. Benji is not joining us, so we have Kyle instead.
Hello. I appreciate that the sum of your Marvel Time issues is 41.
Is there a particular relevance that
Sum 41?
I got it. Okay, that's unfortunate.
No, it's not.
So yeah, we have some more comics to talk about, of course, today, and then we'll get into some news. I mean, you guys are probably sick of hearing me and Kyle discuss Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but we're going to do it anyway, so get ready for that. But first, let's get into some comics. Now, things are going to be a little bit different today because Kyle hasn't had a chance to get through all of the comics, but you did get a chance to read this one, correct?
I did, yes. And I have a couple of questions.
All right. Yeah, that's to be expected, given that you're jumping into this series here. But our first one we're going to talk about here is Symbiote Spider-Man number 5, and this is the conclusion of the series. So perfect issue to pick up for you, jumping right back into things. So I'm curious, what were your thoughts on this?
I thought it was pretty fun. It took a couple of pages to get into for me. There were some references that I think were borderline fun and obvious as far as jokes. And I wasn't 100% sure who the people were. I assume that was Rocket Raccoon.
Yes.
And then it said Captain Marvel. I guess it's not Carol Danvers, obviously. It's someone else.
That's actually Monica Rambeau.
That was my guess, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, so this whole series, actually, real quick, let me point this comment out here. Thanks for watching. So hopefully you do find it interesting. Hopefully we don't bore you with too much. Well, it's going to be about Marvel Comics, so I guess find it as interesting as you possibly can. So yeah, the whole premise of this series has been it ties into the ongoing crossover King in Black, which in present day, Null, the god of the symbiotes, has attacked Earth and is pretty much dominating everything right now. The heroes have been failing over and over again to try and take him out. And this series is going back in time to when Peter first put on the symbiote suit and kind of gives us some backstory, fills in some gaps from that period in comics. And kind of, again, gives you backstory on Null and explains some of his weaknesses. And they are sort of on this mission to potentially impact this future event. Kang, the Conqueror, is involved, so time travel should be a part of it in some way. I don't want to give away too many details, but the Watcher is involved as well. So there are some pretty big ramifications. This is actually going to be my pick of the week, as this whole series pretty much has been, much like last week with Taskmaster. I'm pretty sure every issue of the series was my pick of the week when we came up to them. So yeah, I really like this. I thought it was a satisfying conclusion to this story. I think there is still more to come. This issue did, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but it did give us like an MCU type stinger saying, Symbiote Spider-Man will return, and there's like a Hulk logo at the end of it. So that's pretty interesting. I'm curious to know where that goes and how this impacts King in Black. We should have gotten the end of King in Black by now, but there have been some scheduling issues with Marvel Comics lately, and I'm so curious to know how this series is going to end, because every tie-in issue has presented some sort of solution, and then it's gotten shot down and then brought back up. So I'm very curious to know like where the actual solution is going to come from. But yeah, this series was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing the big conclusion of it. That brings us on to our second comic of the day, which is Return of the Valkyries, number 4, and this is another King in Black tie-in. So, like I said, Kyle didn't get a chance to read all of the comics, so we're gonna play.
I started this one. I got like a couple pages in, and then I lost interest and had to do something else. But
so here's what we're going to do. And you have a little bit of an advantage with this one now, but Based on this cover here and your extensive knowledge of the Marvel Universe, what is this issue about?
I'm going to guess that someone is framed to be as if they were betrayed by Jane Foster, but they weren't really because there's an interrobang. That just means that it's not true. It doesn't actually mean that, but I'm saying, like, obviously they're making you believe that this is a misdirect.
Honestly, probably a better description than I could have given. We've talked about this series in the past has been very, very complicated. There are two different battles in two different realities, or reality is not the right word. Two different realms, I guess. It's like, they're fighting in life and then in the afterlife, and Null is tethered to the afterlife with this sword that he has, and they have to break that tether to break his power. I'm not sure where the betrayed by Jane Foster thing really comes in. I mean, it seems more like she's the one being betrayed. I'm not sure. It's hard to explain. Like I said, very complicated story here. I do like that this issue did focus more on Jane Foster, because this series to this point has been about the various Valkyries, which sounds like a band name, Various Valkyries. But I like I said, I like that they kind of pinpointed one character and focused in on her for this issue. It didn't really make it much less complicated, but it was a little bit easier to follow. It doesn't help too that we're dealing with like Asgardian lore, so like every other word feels like it was taken out of an IKEA catalog. But it is, it helped a little bit for sure. This is one of those tie-in issues that I think, or tie-in series really, that has a big impact on King in Black as a whole. And I'm very curious to know, is this going to be the one? Like, are the Valkyries going to be the one that win the fight against Null? Null took a big hit in this particular issue, so really curious to know how that impacts the whole story going forward. Next, we have Ghost Rider, King in Black Ghost Rider #1. And this was very close to being my pick of the week, for sure. But Kyle, tell me, what was this issue about?
It was about these kids that are trying to solve a mystery, and they see different letters and they get wrong thing. This is about Ghost Rider. He is the Ghost Rider, and he has a motorcycle, and there are bats. It kind of looks like a Meatloaf album cover, but it also just looks like any Ghost Rider cover I could imagine.
Fair. Yeah, all of that is accurate. So this is Ghost Rider's sort of introduction to King in Black, and it's been weird, like I said, with the release schedule being all over the place. This is something that feels like it should have come out within a couple of weeks of King in Black starting, because this again takes us back to the beginning of the event. It also contradicts something from a different King in Black tie-in. So we learned a few weeks back that these dragons, these symbiote dragons, are actually dragons, like covered in, like taken over by symbiotes. So like you could just remove the symbiote and then you have a real dragon there. This one does the opposite. They try to kill a dragon. It turns out it's just a symbiote imitating a dragon. So I guess we have a mix of both throughout this event. I'm curious to know if we get any solid answers on that.
Interesting. Sounds like Slack wasn't working too well for the Marvel writers working from home.
Yeah, somebody missed a memo somewhere. There was definitely something off there about that. But I did really like this issue. Oddly enough, one of the big players in this was Mephisto. So we've been looking for him for a long time now, and we found him. I really like one of the characters that they included in this issue too, and that is Blackheart. If you've never seen Blackheart, check him out. A really, really awesome looking character. I don't know too much about him. I haven't read too much Ghost Rider, and he has some involvement in other comics as well. But Blackheart is the son of Mephisto, or the demon spawn of Mephisto, whatever you want to call him. But a really, really awesome look for a character. I probably shouldn't say that right before saying, at some point we're going to have to do, for Zacks of Life, we're going to have to do just like a coolest look draft, like just the coolest looking characters. Blackheart will be on my radar for that for sure. So I like that they included that. I like that there's a whole dynamic going on with Mephisto and some really interesting things that could happen. Let's just say Mephisto gets his hands on a symbiote. I don't know where they're going to go with that, but that could lead to some really cool stuff. Like I said, I haven't read a ton of Ghost Rider. I've read some from other tie-ins to other big events, but this makes me want to read the ongoing Ghost Rider story. So I think this was a really good issue to get people introduced, not necessarily introduced to the character, because I mean, you need some more context than what you get here. But if you're familiar with Ghost Rider and you're thinking about picking up, future issues, this is a good one to start off with.
Yeah, I've never even seen the Ghost Rider movies, so.
I haven't made it through either of the Ghost Rider movies, so don't bother with those. Next, we have Beta Ray Bill in his own series, and this is like kind of loosely a King in Black tie-in. Like very briefly, I think it connects a little bit, but not too much of it is focused on King in Black. So one more time, this is the last one you haven't read. Tell me what this one's about.
It looks like some sort of warrior, kind of like Thor-esque on that one planet where he fought Hulk. It's like his name reminds me of like Cowboys and Aliens, like that sort of aesthetic, like Old West and science. Maybe like a Back to the Future 3 sort of a vibe. That's all I got.
I like it. You are not far off. So you're not familiar with Beta Ray Bill at all before this?
No.
All right. Well, you nailed it. You nailed the character at least. He is, Asgardian warrior. And I think if I remember correctly, he's featured in the Grandmaster's Tower. He's one of the heads on there. So you had that 100% right. This, like I said, this issue loosely ties into King in Black. Beta Ray Bill is on Asgard after having, and by the way, Stormbreaker in the comics is Beta Ray Bill's weapon. And he had it destroyed by Thor last time they fought. So he's left without his weapon. He has access to every other weapon in Asgard, as Thor tells you in this issue. But Thor is not there, not on Asgard. So Beta Ray Bill is left to lead Asgard in the defense against Null's giant monster, which we find out is actually the Fin Fang Foom, the dragon of Iron Fist lore, but of course controlled by a symbiote. So makes for a fairly formidable opponent for Bill and the Asgardian warriors. So pretty cool action scenes. I think like really, really awesome art in this issue as well. This was definitely a lot of fun if you're somebody who just wants, bang and boom in your comics. There's a lot of that going on.
Bang and boom.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And with Thor being involved as well, of course, you get a lot of crack-a-coom, I think is the sound that they go with. But really this issue is more than just that action. It's about Bill living in Thor's shadow and, trying to really find not approval. He's trying to find his own confidence and he wants Stormbreaker back because he feels that would, bring that confidence back. So he's going to go on a mission here and go on his own journey that we get to see Beta Ray Bill on his own for once, which is should be a lot of fun. I've never been a huge Beta Ray Bill fan, but he's an interesting character for sure. And the way that this first issue sets things up, I'm interested to see where it goes. And our final issue of the week, we have Black Cat. And Kyle, you did get to read this one, so
it's a good thing you didn't ask me what I thought this one was about, because I would have thought that it was about Black Cat, and I would be wrong. So, I will say it's close for me between the two that I read this week, but I'll give this one my pick of the week just because I really liked the way that they use kind of like the journal entry snippet, that kind of ruled paper, as a lot of, instead of just doing like a regular inner dialogue, they kind of had that on a lot of the pages. And I just thought aesthetically, I liked the way that looked, and I liked the way that it read. This was a interesting thing as far as, obviously I didn't have a lot of frame of reference for either of these characters, that being was it Queen Cat? Is that what she's
Yeah.
Queen Cat or Black Cat? And I don't know, who the past person was that they kept referencing. That's apparently Queen Cat was or is or whatever. But I still enjoyed, it was a very simple story, but I still liked the way it was done.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this issue as well. I was disappointed in the beginning because I'm a big fan of Black Cat. I like Felicia Hardy a lot, and she's not featured in this issue all that much. So I was kind of waiting for her to show up, but she does, and when she does, it's satisfying. I think they did a really good job of, they had a great dynamic between those two characters. This is one of those issues that I think, I mean, obviously you kind of gave some of the backstory there. You can read, 75% of this and not know what's going on and, think like, oh, this is, sort of too confusing. I don't know who these people are and what's happening. And then there's one page that just like all the context you need right there. And then all of a sudden the whole story just kind of clicks. So I do like that they pieced everything together for you. And in the end, I think this is an issue that you can just pick up and read like you did today. And obviously this is your pick of the week. And, so clearly you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. I didn't look too much at the cover or the details when I clicked to read it. And I was surprised that it was an issue 4. It definitely felt like an issue 1.
Yeah, so I was a little bit surprised by the content of this issue too, because the first 3 issues of this series were tie-ins to King in Black, and kind of left things. I mean, again, this comes down to the scheduling, like the release schedule issues and stuff like that, because last we saw Felicia Hardy, she was, getting ready for a fight against a whole bunch of symbiotes. And now here we are in this completely different story. I'm assuming we will see that wrap up in a different King in Black related issue. Maybe even just, King in Black. I think we're coming up on number 5 is the next one. So maybe we'll see her there and that whole story wraps up. But yeah, this is definitely the start of a brand new story. I think they even say this is part 1 of 5, or I might be thinking of a different issue that we read today.
Well, I also thought it was interesting is you mentioned that it's a different time because at the end of Symbiote Spider-Man, it even says like, I wonder what Felicia's up to. And so having read those 2 issues, I was like, oh, is that supposed to like lead into this? And no, it's not. But that was my experience of temporarily being like, oh, hey, I guess I read the 2 right ones, and they were actually not related at all.
Yeah, they're connected. They're just 35 years apart. So
Close enough.
I guess not 35 years apart in Marvel time, because Peter Parker is definitely not like 50 something years old right now. But in terms of real time, about that much time. But yeah, I like this issue. I'm definitely interested to see where this goes going forward with this series. And this Queen Cat character, who this was my introduction to her as Queen Cat, at least. I know she's appeared before, but Lily Hollister has a very interesting story. And if this, propels people to check out her story, I think, that's definitely something worth reading, and always a win if you're going to go back and check out some more Marvel comics. Any other thoughts on our comics before we wrap up and move on to some news?
I don't like her name being abbreviated to QC. But other than
that was a little bit weird. I wasn't sure. I had to take a second and be like, oh, right, yeah, Queen Cat, got it. Okay, QC is not like an initials that has a ring to it.
Yeah, I had to reread that those pages just once, just to see if that was like her former initials or her. And then it clicked. I was like, oh no, her former name is whatever, and then this is her new superhero name, because she is a hero, as she establishes.
Right. All right, so this is the part of the show where we will usually talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, Kyle and I have discussed the show at length in our most recent episode of the Zacks of Life podcast. So we'll keep this brief. Kyle, what were your thoughts on this most recent episode?
I continue to enjoy the show. It was good to see Sam and Bucky actually together in this episode. And I also am enjoying the experience of just kind of watching the show and taking it at face value and filling me in on all of who everyone is and what it means and what we could possibly see from there. Because that's just like on the show where you have to tell me what these comics mean. It's kind of the same thing on the TV show. I'm just like, oh, cool. They met a dude. And you're like, no, that's like a huge character. This is a big deal. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So no, I'm definitely enjoying the show. I think it's got a good mix of, the Marvel action, but then especially in this last episode, I feel we got a lot of interesting commentary and development for the characters themselves, more like backstory that we hadn't really realized, and just kind of a greater insight into who they are beyond being just heroes.
Yeah, the big difference regarding me telling you who these characters are and whether or not they're a big deal is that I'm usually right when it comes to the comics, not so much with the shows, apparently, with WandaVision at least. So we'll see how Falcon the Winter Soldier turns out. Maybe the Power Broker ends up being, nobody. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, we talked after week 1 about having some very mild concerns about how they had to cram so much into the next 5 episodes. And this episode was, paced perfectly. It never felt rushed or anything. And yet they did so much in this one issue. We got to know John Walker. They, Bucky and Sam got together, started working together. They introduced so many other characters. We learned a lot more about the Flag Smashers / Enfys Nest. So there was a lot
You
happened.
need to get over it.
I'm not going to. I'm gonna continue to accidentally refer to them as Enfys Nest 100 more times. So if it's a problem, you're just gonna have to deal with it. All right, let's move on to some news. We're gonna stick with the MCU for some brief news here. Russell Crowe has been cast in Thor: Love and Thunder. We don't know anything about the role. It seems very likely it's just a small cameo, a la Matt Damon in Thor Ragnarok, which, speaking of, Matt Damon supposedly, reprising his role in that. So I don't know if they're going to be putting on another play or what, but that should be fun. I'm really curious. I don't know how they're going to use Russell Crowe. He's a great actor. He could definitely play a huge role, but everything's pointing to him playing, just cameo, in this upcoming movie.
I think he might be playing. This is a pretty obscure Marvel character, so I don't even know if you'll know him, but I'm pretty sure he's playing the phone thrower. Don't know if. That story is so ancient, I forgot about it until right now. So it's not funny to anybody, but I sold it pretty well, I think.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago at this point. I thought you were going to go with Maximus or something, but no. All right.
Never seen Gladiator, so.
Well, you should change that, because that is a good movie. Jumping back into the world of comics, we did find out the free comic book day titles for Marvel. They will be Avengers / Hulk #1 and Spider-Man / Venom #1, which I believe was it was a Spider-Man Venom comic I guess not last year, maybe the year before. I don't remember if they did free comic book day last year, but August 14th will be free comic book day this year. So you'll be able to pick up one of those two or both of those free Marvel titles. Should be exciting. Always fun when you can pick up a free comic book.
When you were a kid, did you think that you could just go into the comic shop on free comic day and just choose a comic for free?
I never even really, we talked about this, I think, the very beginning of Zach's Life, that we weren't really big comic book people growing up. And no, so I never even really thought about free comic book day as something that I would take advantage of.
I don't think that happened to me with free comic book day, but I do remember having like a coupon for a comic book shop and it said a free comic, and I thought I could just choose what I wanted. They're like, oh, no, you choose from this box. I'm like, okay, well, then I will buy this comic and I will choose one from your box.
That would be nice if you could just go in there and pick up any book you want and walk out.
They're all the same price, but whatever.
Fair point.
Trying to get rid of their, overstocked.
Right. Nowadays I just wait for them to hit Marvel Unlimited, and granted, I am paying for it at the beginning of the year, but otherwise, every comic is a free comic for me, so I can't recommend Marvel Unlimited enough. Speaking of Marvel Comics, they did sign a new deal with Penguin Random House Publishing, which I'm very glad I was able to pronounce that correctly, because every time I say that quickly, I mess up one word at some point. So
like Doctor
Penguin,
Strange.
yes, yeah. So they'll be handling the distribution of Marvel Comics starting in October. That doesn't change anything for us as comic book fans, at least not right away. We'll see if anything changes down the line, but no, everything's still operating as normal. We'll still be Wednesday Warriors, checking out new comics every week.
Who are they with currently? And
And
is it different for like the trade paperbacks versus the regular issues?
No, and I should mention though, actually, that Penguin will also be handling novels as well, and so all of the Marvel books. Diamond Comic Distributors was the one that Marvel was working with in the past, and they will continue to work with them, just not on the distribution of their comics. I'm not sure what other aspects they work together in, but they will continue to work together. We got some fun news today. Artist John Romita Jr. will be returning to Marvel Comics in July. He's responsible for some really, really awesome art in all kinds of titles like Amazing Spider-Man, Uncanny X-Men, Iron Man, Daredevil. He did the art for the Avengers versus X-Men crossover, which is one of my favorites and has some really, really cool artwork. So this is exciting. We don't know exactly what he'll be working on just yet, but I'm looking forward to whatever really awesome pages we get out of him from, what comic we have coming up in July.
Nice.
Next up, we have Miles Morales, his own Clone Saga, which we heard about a while back, and actually read an issue either last week or the week before that kind of led into the Clone Saga. We now know, actually, they released a trailer for it, and we now know it'll be coming April 28th, so it's right around the corner. Hopefully, they can wrap up King in Black by then. I want to get the ending of that before we move into another big story. But yeah, Benji and I both agreed. Neither one of us was really on board for the Clone Saga. Spider-Man's dealt with clones a lot over his history, so wasn't really thrilled to be seeing a Miles Morales Clone Saga. But they set it up very well with the most recent Miles Morales issue. So now I'm looking forward to it. Again, I just want King in Black finished up first, so hopefully we get that.
Seems like a smart move on their part if they were to do that.
We've already had so many issues that are dealing with the aftermath of King in Black, and they've done a very good job of not giving us any spoilers, which makes sense. But I'm still worried every time I hear or see a character talking about like, oh, now that we're done with Null. I'm like, no, stop! I don't want to hear how you're done with Null. I want to see you finish Null. So hopefully we get that soon again. Another comic coming up in July will be Extreme Carnage, which as I've said 100 times dealing with King in Black, I am all for all things symbiote. And Carnage will be facing off against the 5 symbiotes of the Life Foundation, the 5 Life symbiotes. One of them, of course, being Scream from the people will be familiar with this character from the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man attraction at Universal's Islands of Adventure. That one crazy symbiote character that nobody knows anything about. So I'm excited to see this series start. Extreme Carnage Alpha #1 will be coming out in July. Carnage is always fun. Always makes for some really awesome art, and 2, always makes for just an absolutely crazy, action-packed sort of comic. So this should be fun. And symbiote versus symbiote fights are always entertaining as well. So I'm looking forward to that. The last bit of news
which Carnage is this? Because I know I read a book with you not too long ago that was a different version of Carnage.
Yeah, this is going to be, I don't know that they specifically mentioned it, but everything based on the look looks like it will be Cletus Cassidy, the original Carnage, not Mary Jane Watson from alternate reality dealing with Spider-Gwen and all that. I do actually want to mention as well, too, that Philip Kennedy Johnson will be the writer of this series, and he just started the Marvel Alien series that Mike Celestino reviewed for us last week. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to some more of his work. And like I said, the final piece of news we have today, not comic related, but we found out today that Marvel Studios president, chief head, overruler, Kevin Feige And
Architect.
Director of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Carrie Skoglund, will be talking at, both of them will be speaking at the virtual Banff Fest, which is another one that I've tripped over quite a few times. Banff Fest. It's hard to have a word end in an F and then another one followed up starting with an F.
They're Canadian. What do you expect?
Right. So they will be speaking about Marvel Studios' transition from movies into television and how, the work, was different from one to the other, or how it's the same, and what it means for the future of the MCU. So I'm excited to hear about that because we've talked about that a lot on Zacks of Life, and like how it's a completely unprecedented form of storytelling and really interesting to see how these things play out going forward. So I'm looking forward to hearing them talk about it.
And if you ever get the chance, Banff, Alberta is very pretty. Very pretty.
Banff has actually always been on our travel list for sure. But if you're just attending a virtual event, you don't get to see Banff.
No, I know. I'm not suggesting for this, but yeah, it's always been a place that my mom actually had a Banff T-shirt when I was a kid that I remember, and then we went many years later. So yeah, I've always held a special place in my heart.
Nice. And just to clear things up, this is Banff, Banff. Not to be confused with Bamf, the sound that Nightcrawler makes when he teleports.
Yes.
All right, so that's going to do it for us on Marvel Time. Kyle, thank you for filling in today.
Yeah.
And guessing some comic book, judging books based on their cover, which you're not supposed to do.
Do I get a grade?
The Beta Ray Bill one, you nailed it pretty much. So you're going to get a solid B+. I'm going to give you that.
All right. Thank you.
You can hear me and Kyle talk about all sorts of Marvel news, and especially Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and doing all sorts of ridiculous drafts relating to Marvel on the Zacks of Life podcast, which we have a new episode out right now. We drafted the funniest MCU scenes, which was a lot of fun, with the aforementioned Mike Celestino. That was a lot of fun. So you can check that out right now. If you want a deeper dive on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was joined by Becca Burbank every Monday. For Marvel Monday, we talk about the most recent episode, so you can check that out as well. Oh, also, I wanted to mention, as I grab a little prop here, I do have a video out right now, an unboxing video of the new House of X wave from Hasbro for the Marvel Legends series. So here's the Cyclops figure, and he has this prop here with his optic blast. So there you go. So you can check out the whole unboxing video and see the whole wave on our YouTube channel right now.
You could put googly eyes on it and make it look like in the cartoon world, like when they go, ooh.
That would be really funny. But yeah, that's going to do it for us on Marvel Time. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.